Good afternoon, respected members of the panel and dear students. I am Shirmay Alisea Bristol. Together with my group mates, we are going to present our thesis paper proposal with the title The Philippine Steel Industry, an Evaluation of the Steel Production Chain. Our presentation is divided into two main parts. Firstly, we are going to discuss the rationale or the background of the study. Second, we are going to present the review of related literature. Thirdly, the conceptual framework of the iron and steel making process of an integrated steel mill. Fourth, the statement of the problem, wherein we discuss the gap that the study aims to address, which includes the general and specific objectives of the study. Lastly, for the first part, the significance of the study, wherein we discuss the importance of the present study and its potential benefits to the target population. For the second part, we will be discussing a detailed methodology, and that consists of the data sources, research instruments, and finally, the data analysis. Moving forward, I'd like to focus on the discussion of our rationale or background of the study. To begin, I'd like to discuss and define steel. So what is steel? Steel is a widely used alloy containing iron and carbon. You may also be wondering what an alloy is. An alloy is a metallic substance containing or composed of two or more elements. Steel is not only attributed to be 100% recyclable, but also it provides long-term durability, or shall we say, it can withstand extreme conditions. Next, steel is deemed or considered as the backbone of modern industry for a reason that it serves a necessary input to numerous industries such as energy, construction, automotive, and transportation, infrastructure, and machinery. With the aforementioned instrumental uses and contributions to society, establishing a domestic steel industry will play a crucial role in a nation's path to economic growth and sustainable development. And so, developing nations like the Philippines are expanding their steel production capacities. The Philippines is considered to be one of the world's richest in mineral resources, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority. For instance, iron ore, which is a raw material in steel production, is one of the major reserves of the Philippines, amounting to about 300 million metric tons. However, the Philippines remains to be inadequate of domestic demand, since an integrated steel mill is not present. For this reason, our study intends to focus on evaluating the steel production chain of the Philippines steel industry with respect to the selected major steel producing countries. Now, let us proceed to the presentation of the review of related literature.
We would also like to discuss our related literature review. So, I'll be giving you a background on the steel industry for us to support and give an overview of the current knowledge of the study. So, when we look at the background of the steel industry, Garcia and Vicente emphasize that the steel industry's product provides the necessary inputs for multifarious uses and as well as provides a range of employment opportunities, it boosts industrial activities, and most importantly, it fosters economic growth. Also, Roth tested if there is really a relationship between the steel industry and the economic growth in six Southeast Asian countries using a Granger causality test, which indicated that it indeed has correlation. And as we look further in our literature review, emissions and impacts on the competitiveness of steel industry is also discussed. So most steel manufacture results in producing dust emissions, and according to Xiaokan and Radu, the significant sources of airborne dust are sintering machines, blast furnace, coke oven plants, steel processing of oxygen, and the preparation of raw materials, which are various steel production processes, and it even shows that the coke plants yield the highest risk, about 3 to 4 times higher. then this operation in steel plants, including the blast furnace and coke oven, pose a severe risk to the workers, especially that plant operation induces intense heat that causes thermal stress, where Fahed discovered that the worker of a steel factory is affected by thermal discomfort and suffered an increased heart rate because they are exposed to temperatures that stretched from 34 to 40.9 degrees Celsius. And these risks increased the productivity loss of the workers due to these excessive activities. Now, we will further discuss our study with our conceptual framework.
So good afternoon. Let me present our conceptual framework. This is the steel production chain, the iron and steel making process of an integrated steel mill. The primary raw materials for steel production are iron ore, coal, and limestone. Coal is the primary source of carbon for energy and heating. It is used to generate the coke. Iron ore is a metallic mineral used to make the steel, and limestone is a fluxing agent used to make slag that removes the impurities in the production process for better output. The materials are charged into the sintering process that transforms the raw materials into the agglomerated products for the blast furnace. But before the entire blasting process, the coal will be heated first in the coke oven to produce the coke, which will be used as a fuel in the blast furnace and serves as a reducing agent in smelting the iron ore. Before iron ore can be used, oxygen must be removed first. It is known as reducing. This can be done in the smelting machine, the blast furnace, where hot air is being injected continuously to produce hot metals and convert them into liquid steel. The liquid steel is transported into the basic oxygen furnace. During the process, oxygen is blasted into the liquid hot metal to reduce its carbon content. After the process, the liquid steel enters into the continuous casting process, where a water-cooled system is extracting the heat until the material solidifies with its required shape, making the semi-finished products like slabs, billets, and blooms. The semi-finished products will undergo rolling to decrease the thickness of the body and shaping the material, and finishing the output into the desired finished product. One of the outputs of an integrated steel mill are steel coils. Steel coils are sheet metals that are used in construction undertakings and machine building sectors. Other finished products from an integrated mill are bars and pipes, and heavy plates and railway rails. So now let's proceed to the statement of the problem.
For our statement of the problem, in light of the increasing demand for steel, the primary objective of this study is to evaluate the production chain in the Philippine steel industry. The study aims to analyze the available raw materials, available courses or training needed in the steel industry in the Philippines in comparison to that major steel producing nations. The present study also shows the volume of crude steel production, imports and exports, apparent steel use, which lays the foundation as to the current competitive position of the Philippine steel industry, which in return allowed the nation to create an edge over competitors in the market. In the next slide, we'll be talking about the significance of the study.
So, the significance of the study. So, this study helps to further identify the availability of raw production materials and the steel production processes required for domestic steel production in the Philippines. So, the findings of this study may help firms to recognize the required raw materials, skills, and machinery applicable to establish an integrated steel mill in the future. Likewise, the information collected may also assist in the growth of the steel industry in the Philippines to know the current trends of raw materials and production processes needed to have that competitive edge among other developing countries. Moreover, the discussion in this paper may present the in-demand skills and courses needed to compete with the current steel industry, as faster influx and availability of raw materials and knowledge with fewer complications will enable the mills to work faster and efficiently. So, on the next part, we will be discussing a detailed methodology which consists of data sources, research instruments, and data analysis.
Data sources. This study utilizes primary and secondary data sources. According to Salkind, a primary data source provides original and first-hand data, and the secondary data contains data that has already been compiled by someone other than the current researcher and is being used for a particular reason. The key informant interview will be the primary source of the present study. The interview will be about raw material requirements, labor and skills requirements, and steel production chain. The secondary data sources for collecting data on raw material requirements, labor and skills requirements, steel production chain, the volume of crude steel production, imports, exports, and apparent steel use are from World Steel Association Statistical Yearbook from year 2010 to 2019, Arcelormittal Factbook from the Arcelormittal website, POSCO Products website, Nippon Steel website, Philippine Center Corporation website, Steel Asia website, Department of Labor and Employment, Bureau of Local Employment website, SGS Academy Philippines, and Philippine Yearbook Mines and Minerals 2015 edition from the Philippine Statistics Authority website. And now let's proceed to the research instruments.
For our research instruments, our first research instrument is the set of questions. In this study, the researchers use a set of interview questions that will serve as a primary data collection tool for the key informant interview. The data tool intends to acquire in-depth information concerning the steel production chain from sourcing the raw materials to the post-production process. The formulated interview questions are designed to determine the Philippine steel industry performance in terms of its available raw materials, available courses or training programs, and steel production processes present in the country. Another instrument used in our research is the video conferencing software. The online interview is conducted through a video conferencing software in accordance with the COVID-19 health and safety protocols. A video conferencing software is a medium for synchronous communication, according to Salmons 2010. The aim of this data tool is to obtain data from the online interview, and the collected data are used for data analysis. Alongside that, to prevent unnecessary health issues and to ensure that the health protocols are implemented at all times. In the next slide, we'll be talking about the data analysis.
Finally, I will be discussing the data analysis. Our study adopts a deductive approach to the collected data that adequately addresses the research objectives. A deductive approach is applied based on prior knowledge or existing data. This approach is guided by a structured objective derived from previous findings in the similar body of knowledge. It is outlined as firstly collecting data from the aforementioned secondary data sources, then establishing an analysis between the research objectives and of the summary findings extracted from the collected data. This way, the researchers are able to further map connections and deeper insights of the objective context. If you look at this table presented on the screen, the table presents the steel production chain of the Philippines and selected top steel producing countries, namely Germany, South Korea, and Japan. The data collected demonstrating the steel production chain of the countries are summarized through a tabular form, then further discussed. Next, we will have Table 3. Table 3 presents the raw materials in steel production and their availability in the Philippines. In addition, the table shows the labor or skills requirements in the Philippine steel industry. The collected data from the secondary data sources are described and interpreted through a comprehensive discussion that highlights the key information in the objective context. And the last table, Table 4 presents the total volume of crude steel production, total imports, and total exports of semi-finished and finished steel products, and apparent steel use of finished steel products of the top steel producing countries compared to the Philippines. The selected countries are Germany, South Korea, and Japan, since these countries are ranked as top steel producers according to the World Steel Association as of 2020. The total volume of crude steel production, total imports, and total exports of semi-finished and finished products and as well as the apparent steel use of finished steel products serve as industry performance indicators. These indicators are analyzed through trend analysis to comprehensively assess the current position of the Philippine steel industry in terms of the aforementioned indicators. The collected numerical data are organized and analyzed through a graphical analysis using a statistical software. The researchers utilize the trend analysis to make appropriate distinctions between the selected steel producing nations. Trend analysis also help determine the Philippines' strengths and weaknesses in industry performance compared to other countries in the same industry. Lastly, the key informant interview is conducted and transformed by acquiring an intelligent transcription. An intelligent transcription is somewhat a verbatim transcription. However, it eliminates unnecessary words such as and the like. After that, it is subjected to a deductive analysis, which involves deductive coding, or basically saying a concept driven coding. These are predefined set of codes. Then assign these codes to the newly acquired data. These codes might come from previous findings of other researches. Then after that, it is data is further analyzed to elaborate or organize and present results based on the well-defined research objectives. So that is the end of our presentation. My group is now ready to entertain questions.